Funk music has always been about attitude, style, and commanding the room, and no one embodied that better than Morris Day. But with that same charisma came Grudges' long, bitter rivalries that Morris never let go of. Some artists copied his style, others disrespected the funk foundation he helped build, and a few, they simply pushed the wrong buttons. From explosive battles with Prince, to image wars with Rick James, to clashes with singers who brought softness into a world built on swagger, this is the story of 8 singers Morris Day never forgave, and the juicy reasons why. Before we dive into the feuds, let's set the scene. Morris Day wasn't just a frontman, he was the showman. Sharp suits, flashy moves, cocky one-liners, and enough confidence to fill an arena. When he stepped on stage, he was funk. But when you live life that boldly, you don't forget slights. Respect in the music industry meant everything, and Morris wasn't about to let anyone, whether superstar or upstart, threaten his legacy. And so the grudges piled up. Some playful, some painful, but all unforgettable. 1. Terrence Trent D'Arby, the cocky copycat. The late 80s brought a fresh face with a loud voice, Terrence Trent D'Arby. He didn't just sing, he bragged, telling the press he was the future of funk and soul. Morris didn't buy it for a second. He had already mastered cocky charisma. This cat's walking around like he invented confidence. Please, I was born cocky, he scoffed. To Morris, D'Arby was eyeliner and ego without the authentic roots of funk. And while D'Arby scored hits like Sign Your Name, Morris felt he was all flash, no funk. The tension wasn't just personal, it was generational. Funk was about sweat, grit, and performance. D'Arby represented an era leaning towards style, spectacle, and self-proclaimed genius. And Morris wasn't about to hand over the crown to someone he saw as a flashy imitator. Second, Prince, the frenemy rivalry. No feud defines Morris Day more than his complicated relationship with Prince. They grew up in Minneapolis together, both dreaming of stardom. Prince gave Morris the spotlight by making him the frontman of the time in 1981. On stage, Morris looked like he ruled the world. But behind the curtain, Prince wrote the songs, played most instruments, and pulled the strings. That power imbalance boiled over during Purple Rain. On screen, Morris literally played Prince's rival. Off screen, the hostility was even more intense. Their concerts became battles. The time would open for Prince, and sometimes they stole the show, forcing Prince to raise his own game just to keep up. Fans loved it. But behind the scenes, Morris hated being seen as Prince's sidekick. He wanted full creative control, not to be someone else's puppet. By 1984, he walked away from the time, burned out from fighting Prince's shadow. But here's the twist. Even years later, the grudge lingered. Prince's estate later blocked Morris from using the name Morris Day and the Time, reopening old wounds. For Morris, it wasn't just a music feud. It was a lifetime power struggle. 3. Rick James, Funk Wars. When funk legends clash, sparks fly. Rick James versus Prince was already a legendary beef, but because Morris was Prince's protege, he got pulled straight into the fire. Rick mocked the time as Prince's little clones. Morris fired back the only way he knew, with sharper suits, hotter grooves, and his trademark swagger. Behind the scenes, he didn't mince words either. Man, this dude ain't even that funky. The rivalry wasn't just about music, it was about image. Both Rick and Morris were known for bold hairstyles, unforgettable fashion, and outrageous personas. Their stage presence was as much a weapon as their songs. For Rick, funk was raw, gritty, and streetwise. For Morris, it was stylish, calculated, and sharp. Both wanted to claim the crown of funk, and neither was willing to back down. And when Prince's star rose, Rick felt doubly slighted. Every Grammy Prince won felt like an insult to Rick's legacy, and Morris, standing by Prince's side, became part of that resentment. 4. El DeBarge, the pretty boy problem. El DeBarge had it all: falsetto vocals, good looks, and women swooning over him. For most singers, that was a blessing. For Morris, it was a problem. Man, he sings like he's scared to sweat, Morris once joked. To him, El's polished style lacked grit, sweat, and fire. Funk wasn't supposed to be flawless. It was supposed to be raw. But deeper than music, this rivalry was personal. Morris thrived on female attention, and El was soaking it up effortlessly. In Morris's eyes, that wasn't just competition. It was theft. This wasn't just about singing styles. It was a clash of egos over who could command the room's attention. 5. Keith Sweat, the begging ballads. Keith Sweat built his career on emotional R&B, full of pleading and heartbreak. Fans loved it. Morris didn't. Stop crying on the track. You're supposed to seduce them, not sob for them, he jabbed. For Morris, seduction meant confidence, smooth delivery, and effortless swagger. Keith's begging style was everything Morris wasn't. To him, it was cheesy, weak, and wrong for R&B. The Grudge wasn't about talent. Keith was a hitmaker. It was about philosophy. Funk was confidence. Keith was desperation. And Morris couldn't forgive that. 6. Al B. Sure, soft funk ain't funk. When Al B sure hit the scene with soft falsettos and quiet charm, Morris rolled his eyes. That ain't a falsetto, that's a nap whisper, he cracked. Al represented a softer R&B sound, romantic and smooth. Morris stood for loud, brash, cocky funk. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. To Morris, Al wasn't just a singer. He was a symbol of how funk was being watered down. Where Morris brought edge and attitude, Al brought whispers and tenderness. And for Morris, that wasn't real funk. 7th, Cisco, the gimmick gone wrong. Silver hair, wild theatrics, flashy outfits. To some, Cisco was groundbreaking. To Morris, it was parody. Silver hair? I did that in '84, bro. You just turned it into a circus, he said. Morris believed style should be iconic, not gimmicky. And when the thong song dropped, Morris rolled his eyes. Catchy? Sure. Legendary? Not in his book. He thought it set R&B back a decade, cheapening the art with novelty. For Morris, Cisco's act lacked substance. He saw him as flash without funk, a circus act compared to the calculated cool Morris had built. 8. Bobby Brown, the bad boy challenger. When Bobby Brown left New Edition, he reinvented himself as R&B's bad boy. To fans, it was exciting. To Morris, it was laughable. Another kid with a perm trying to out-bad me, he scoffed. Morris had already perfected the bad boy image years earlier. The suits, the steps, the women, the swagger. Bobby was just chasing what Morris had already built. Morris even jabbed, "I moonwalked before he mooncrawled." To him, Bobby had hits, but not the originality. The bad boy crown belonged to Morris, and no newcomer was going to snatch it. Morris Day was never just another singer. He was funk swagger personified. The mirror, the suits, the walk, the talk. Everything about him said, "I own this room." And his grudges? They weren't petty. They were battles over something bigger. Respect, identity, and the right to define funk on his own terms. Some rivals, like Prince, forced him to sharpen his act, pushing him to prove he was more than a sidekick. Others, like Rick James and Cisco, became targets of his sharp tongue and sharper fashion. Each rivalry told a piece of the story. A man defending not just his career, but the very idea of funk swagger itself. See, forgiveness means letting go. And Morris Day never let go of anything. He remembered every slight, every rivalry, every challenge. If you crossed him once, you were etched into his history forever. That stubbornness, that refusal to bow, is what made him magnetic on stage and complicated off it. But maybe that's the point. Morris's grudges weren't weaknesses. They were fuel. Every competitor, every copycat, every doubter only reminded him to strut sharper, sing harder, and shine brighter. And in the end, that's why his legend still matters. Because long after the battles faded, one truth remained. Morris Day never apologized for being Morris Day. He was bold, he was cocky, he was unforgettable, and in his eyes there was only one king of funk swagger, and his name was Morris Day.